So, hello, Culture Factor family. I have a very special creator and artist with me today, and her name is Eden Michelle. She goes by the name of Egg Stuff for her music, as her maybe her alter ego. We'll find out a little more about that. Uh, but what's so interesting is she's basically a child prodigy because she won Best National Pianist in the under 18 competition at age 6, which just blows my mind. At grade 7, and she was taking her music exams at the Trinity College of Music in London, and she was 10 years old, which, okay, I'm so glad everybody's sitting for this because it gets better. She taught herself guitar at age 12, and at 15 released her first album. So let me bring Eden on here. Hello, welcome to Culture Factor.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor to be here.
Thank you so much for visiting with us and sharing your story. Before I jump into any questions, I'd love for you to take us, since you released that album at the tender age of 15, you've gone on to do a lot. So maybe you could share with us, because right now we're facing down a top 40 hit. So there's a lot that happened in between. Could you share that?
Sure, of course. So basically, I had a classical upbringing, and it led to pop rock when I turned 13, 14. I ended up writing my first song, and my older brother took me into a recording studio, and we recorded a demo of which I was fortunate enough to be offered, I would say, about 8 or 9 record deals from that. But my family decided that we were going to do everything independently. We were advised to do everything independently because the deals that we were offered were those old traditional record deals where the artist actually doesn't take away a lot, a lot of income. So we started an independent record label, and we recorded my first album, which was called Broken Truth. And I released that under Eden Michelle. It was very Avril Lavigne influenced. I had a lot of pop rock interest at that time. I was listening to a lot of rock bands like Paramore, and very inspired by female-led rock bands. So yeah, the first album was a pop rock album. It was, I produced it in South Africa with an amazing record producer called John Buckley. And that was literally just the beginning of the whole journey of me creating and producing and writing.
That is so interesting to me, that your influence was so different at that age, and it's obviously different now. You've entered into the EDM world, which I understand is not heavily influenced by females, but your earlier interactions with music were based on a more female pop rock type of music. I remember seeing Paramore. They opened for No Doubt, and they were amazing. They were really good. So was Gwen Stefani, because she was already Gwen Stefani at that point.
I can only imagine. That must have been an incredible concert.
Yeah, so it's interesting how full circle you've covered like every genre, because you started off with classical, and you went through pop rock and EDM. Yes. You're like running the gamut in music. I think that's part of your strong roots, though, right? You're able to do that.
I definitely think the classical music was an incredible foundation. I mean, just understanding the theory of classical music and how it works. I was so fortunate enough to have that upbringing and have that as such a important part of my life. And it definitely influenced my writing. And yeah, I think at the time when I did the pop rock album, it was quite a popular genre, in that I can't even remember the date we're talking, but it was very popular at that stage. Avril Lavigne was my biggest idol, and she was kind of leading the female industry, especially in the pop rock scene. So yeah, it went from that, and then I think I just kind of grew into myself. I realized how much I love EDM. I felt like this was the direction I needed to go, and I was challenged by my brother and my other brother to write a EDM song or produce it, and the first one was terrible. But I just kind of developed with it and went with it, and just realized how much I love the genre. And I was like, okay, this works now. This fits with me. This is something I can literally see myself doing for the next good 10, 15 years. And I love this, and I'm happy where I'm at now.
That's a really interesting transformation you went through, and like not producing something you liked, but then realizing it's still yours. Like you still need to grow and develop there.
Absolutely.
I should point out, you know, you don't just create the music, like you're a producer, you're a songwriter, you're a musician, you're a singer, and you're a DJ. And you've moved back and forth from Eden Michelle and to Egsta. I'd love to hear how that name came to be. But
Sure.
within this transformation as a creator, can you share with us like your why and this and the evolution of becoming Egsta?
Sure. So Eden Michelle was I was obviously born Eden, and I really liked my name, and I think the name worked in the pop rock scene. But when it came to deciding on how I wanted to go about into the electronic dance music side of things, I didn't feel like it fit perfectly. I decided I wanted to have a dance music name, but everyone kind of kept going to, oh, but you have such a beautiful name, you got such a pretty name, you should use your own name. And then that would kind of make me think, oh, have I made the right decision? Did I make the right choice? Like, is Egster not the right thing to do? And then eventually, when I actually just decided to kind of stick to my true intention and my true self, I felt like Egster was the way to go, and I'm super happy with the decision because Egster's evolved into a brand. Like the logo is an egg, and on the merchandise for people to wear, they can wear the egg with the Egster writing on the sleeve, and it's become like a whole little brand and culture within itself, which is so cool and so exciting just to be able to see that develop. And then in terms of how the name came about, I was called Eggy my whole life by my younger brother, my older brother. He's older than me, but he's the baby of the two. He called me Eggy. It was just a nickname that I had from a young age. And then he would also call me Rockstar over the whole pop rock scene. And then the one day he just said Egster. And we were chatting, and I just said, wow, that'll actually be such a cool name in the EDM side of stuff, because I mean, you've got your Zed, your Skrillex, Avicii, you know, all of these top DJs, and it kind of just fits, and it works. And yeah, like I said, then the moment I actually decided that that was something I wanted to stick with, I have now, and I'm very happy with my choice.
Well, I didn't realize that you had so much branded merchandise already. So I'll also add that to the show notes for the Culture Factor family so that they can get some cool gear
I'd
from
love that.
Exta.
Thank you.
That'd be really
Thank you.
cool. So so I've downloaded Bay before anything else, which is your top hit. But I'd
Yeah.
love to understand the creative processing around adapting your work to be EDM. And the song you have out there now is not EDM. So what do you have coming down the pike into Spotify that people could download?
Sure. So to answer your question with regards to the creative process first, a lot of the time, because I play piano and guitar, I end up writing the song on guitar or on piano. I wrote Bay while I was sitting in a beautiful garden in Surrey in England. And it was originally supposed to just be an acoustic track, and we've actually taken the record now and made an acoustic version of it to kind of give you an idea of what it was intended to sound like. But I just felt at the time that this would be such a good song, you know, to have a bit of an EDM beat and be very pop in its sound and in its production. So that was kind of the direction that I went. And then I originally recorded the full vocal for the song, and I just felt like this would be a really great duet and a really great collaboration. So it was pretty much a no-brainer to get a voice like Lee Cole on the song. Yeah, that was really, really fun. And then to answer your question regarding, what was the second one? Apologies.
No, no problem. I asked too many questions at once.
No problem.
At the song Bay is not one of your EDM tracks, right? It's more top 40. So what songs are you bringing into Spotify that would be more of that genre, so we can guide people? Like, what song should they download like right away? When is that one going to be available?
Perfect. So everything will start being available from, I would say, January 2022. I've got a lot of new content. I ended up spending most of 2020 in studio because we weren't obviously able to perform live or tour, just creating content. So I made 30 songs, and all those singles are basically ready for release, which is really exciting. And I'm just dying to put it out so that people can actually hear. So we've had to obviously put a bit of a release schedule together, and the first one will be coming out in January next year. But yeah, to answer your question, I think Bay had obviously more of a pop feel. It still does kind of work within the EDM side of stuff. It's not necessarily like a raved sort of track, but I think what's great is that songs like that can develop into more of an EDM sound, especially if you get other DJs making remixes of it and everything. But it was just important for me, especially with the first release, to make sure that it was something that would bite on radio and that would have a bit of a commercial sound so that I could start growing my audience. And obviously, as we go and as we progress, my sound is going to get a little bit harder, a little bit more electronic, and then obviously I'm always going to continue to make acoustic versions of the songs so that it's easy listening and people can enjoy it. But yeah, I would say there's some really, really cool ones coming out. I don't want to say names right now because we may actually decide to release a track that I'm thinking would be perfect right now or in January, only in a year's time, kind of thing. But I can say that they're really exciting, and I'm so stoked to be putting them out. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I'm so into music. I actually want to go back a little bit because I think the listeners would really find it interesting to understand maybe that emotional side you went through. So
yeah.
You were touring in 2019, if I read correctly.
Yes.
And then obviously you were in lockdown in 2020, where you went into a deep dive in your creative process. I've seen some videos, like we saw, Taylor Swift, for example, when she went into lockdown, what that looked like for the creative process. What was that like for you? Because you said there was like 30 pieces that were born of that time. That's pretty intense. What did that feel like for you to be like on tour, surrounded by so many people and all of that energy, and then going into lockdown and producing such a body of work? Can you go deep for me there?
For sure. That's such an interesting question, and I think it's such a cool question because every artist will have a bit of a different experience, obviously, of what they went through. I think for me, the tour we did was quite short. It was 9 cities in 14 days, but yet very exhausting at the same time, because it was literally getting on the train, getting off the train, getting on a flight, getting off the flight, performing, going to bed, waking up 2 hours later, back on the next flight, so it was a high intense sort of 2 weeks. And then I think more than anything, lockdown was obviously just so unexpected for everyone in the world. So it tested all of us mentally to kind of move forward and figure out how how are we actually going to make this work, you know? And for me, I think the hardest part and the most intense part was that it's practically impossible to feel inspired and excited to write music when you trapped in four walls. And yet I managed to even write a song about that, which ended up working, you know, towards the end. But it was very intense. And what I think what helped me was, what I would do is I would record 5 voice notes every day. And no matter what the idea was, even if it was just a melody line or some lyrics I had in mind, or what I would say for the drop, like something catchy that I think would work. And I did that solid 5 voice notes a day for 6 months. And thereafter would go through those voice notes and see kind of what would inspire me on that day, get a bit of a vibe, get a bit of a feel of what I was enjoying. And then I'd end up writing a song that day for it. But it was very difficult. It was very hard to be creative, because part of the inspiration as an artist is traveling, and it's meeting people and hearing stories and interacting with human beings. You know, that's what gets us going as creatives. So, but at the same time, I think the diligence and being forced to actually like sit down and create was interesting, and I got through it. So it was something to kind of feel proud about, you know, this year, and go, we did it, you know, we did good, well done. But I think also something, just from my perspective, that was super difficult was I have spent the past 6 years traveling nonstop, and in between 2018 and the beginning of 2020, I visited about 50 or so cities. So being grounded, and I'm using that, like, excuse the pun, to have to be forced to stay in an apartment and also not be able to travel and see my family and go see the world and stuff was really challenging. But I think we all got through it, and we can all just get excited now that we can start traveling again, and I can perform again, and I'll show the music that I did create in that period to everyone around the world, hopefully.
That's a great story. I love that. I feel that being able to create under stress is very humbling, you know, to be able to be able to innovate during a time that's so difficult, and to grow in some way, shape, or form. It's very humbling.
That's so true. The way you've just explained it is perfect. It was a humbling year and a very humbling experience.
Yeah, I love that your process is very much like a writer, that you show up every day. You showed up every day to put those 5 notes down, those 5 voice notes down.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think an author, for example, looks at a blank sheet of paper. I think somebody who wants to create a piece of art faces down that blank canvas, but you put in the reps.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that sometimes like light broke through and it inspired your creative process, where some days you probably want to just fling the guitar across the room. I don't know.
I think there were days where I would kind of procrastinate and avoid the 5 voice notes and just try and wash dishes or keep busy or do something other than like be creative, because it was so challenging. And that's also another part that's really hard, is you record this voice note, and even though you may have a melody line that could be cool 3 or 4 days later, at the time that you're recording it, obviously imposter syndrome kicks in, and you're like, what is this? This is terrible. Why am I even actually putting this down on a voice note, you know? And then, like I say, 3 or 4 days later, you're like, actually, that's not bad. I could maybe use that at a later stage, kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's like that amazing speaker, Simon Sinek, says you got to just brush your teeth. Like, if you just brush your teeth once and leave it for 7 days, it's not going to be great. You know, you got to show up and brush your teeth every single day, and then you'll have perfectly clean, perfect teeth, you know? So it's kind of the same thing. And I had to just force myself to be diligent and keep going.
You know, did you find yourself channeling your inner Avril Lavigne? Like, I feel like you probably had those moments of like angst where you just wanted to like rock out. Did you find like going back to some of your roots, like either the classical piano or some of the artists that inspired you, did that help move you forward at all?
Absolutely. And what was cool was that even though I didn't end up using obviously all of the voice notes because there were far too many, I ended up writing piano pieces that are just strictly instrumental. Um, I will always, there's something ingrained inside of me with rock music. And I still write rock music, even if I don't necessarily use it or release it as extra. It still comes out of me somehow. Then some days I would literally just sit behind my laptop and produce a hip hop beat, and I'm like, well, I'm never going to use this, but at the end of the day, it's also just about like opening that tap and just letting it flow, you know, and like letting the bad water come out, but then eventually it will be crystal clear, you know.
I agree. I think it's really cool to incorporate different genres of music, um, or if you're an artist in another type of way, to incorporate in different mediums, because by pushing yourself, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable or it feels like you're wearing somebody else's clothes for the day, it informs your work somehow. Do you feel that when you take on, say, hip hop, and maybe it doesn't feel like you're wearing like your shoes or whatever, but it does something to your music?
Absolutely. And I think so there have been times where I've made like a hip hop beat and then I've ended up keeping the bass line, for example, and using it in an EDM production. So it always kind of turns it, I always make it work. If, like I say, if I write a really sad ballad that has meaning and meaningful and deep lyrics, then I can end up actually just putting the production behind it in order to enhance it to the level of it being something that's in the EDM sound. So I definitely think whatever comes out was kind of meant to come out, and it all actually just correlates together eventually.
Well said. I
I
have
hope that answers your question.
it does. No, it does. I actually have like a left field question. You know, in thinking of, you know, MP3 tracks and all the new music you're coming out, are you dabbling at all into the concept of an NFT, like a, which is a non-fungible token? Because I understand, of course, that art can be produced, you know, a JPEG, essentially minted into an NFT. But I know there's a lot of people in music looking at audio tracks uh, being minted as an NFT. Are you looking to go down that road, or is this too left field of a question?
No, absolutely. I actually made NFTs about 9, 10 months ago, which we are planning on putting out next year. I have two very, very talented brothers. My one brother he actually created a video, well, it's a gaming platform, and he launched a drop of NFTs about 2 or 3 months ago, and he sold out literally within the first night of his drop. It's a his website's enemymetal.com, and the company is called Enemy Metal, and he basically makes like NFTs in the gaming space. And my other brother works very closely with him in creating NFTs, and he said to me, Eden, you know, it's very popular at the moment. This was when NFTs basically just launched. He said it's very popular at the moment, that especially DJs and producers in the dance side of things are making NFTs. So we created a whole series, and I'm definitely going to be considering putting NFTs to like visuals to the songs that I release. And I've been doing a lot of research. It's something that really interests me, the whole crypto world and NFTs. And one of the DJs that I follow, his name's Blau. He created a company called Royal, and what they basically do is they sell a share of royalties to the fans. So the fan will basically buy this NFT and own a cut of the royalties in perpetuity of that song's lifetime. And I love those type of concepts. I think it's so innovative. I think it's so exciting, and I think we're just going into like this whole digital world and this whole new era of a way for people to even just create, and create more. So obviously, because I've just released my first song, I want to grow my audience a little bit and get a bit of a fan base going. But NFTs are definitely something that are going to be like a very, very important part of my sort of growth and me as an artist, my brand as an artist, and everything. And the egg logo it's amazing how much we'll be able to play with it.
That would be really amazing to also see you transform your egg into NFT art.
Absolutely.
That can be bought alongside it, or maybe gaming, set up some sort of gaming alongside it. I'm sure your brother has a million ideas.
Yeah, their ideas are endless. And I mean, that's what's so exciting, is it's like, when I'm busy focused on the music, they're like coming up with ideas of ways to create NFTs with my music. So I'm really fortunate to have a little circle of support,
It's tremendous. I wish I had that circle.
Yeah.
I would love, actually, at some point when you're ready to go through that, I don't know if you'll be available at that point, or maybe alongside with your brothers. I'd love to have you all on, and we can talk about the process of creating your music or your brand or your art in some way as an NFT. And we can, again, we can put in the show notes how people can go bid on your work or become part of your creator economy in the blockchain. I think it'd be really
Absolutely.
fun.
You tell me when, Holly, and it's a date.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. I think I'd love for you to go through the process somewhat with your brothers and have something built out, whether it's a song, or it could be more than one thing. It could be like music, it could be your merchandise in some way, or an experience, like they get a piece of something that's live, but it's just for your fan base. I don't know. Let's play with it. Let's have another conversation later on Culture Factor. I think it'd be really interesting to have my community see the evolution of you as an artist, and all the different lanes you're taking with your work, because I think other people are looking for that, right?
For sure. And I know that they'd be both down to do it and very excited. So we'll make that happen.
Excellent. So you have music coming on board in January of 2022. So we'll be maybe making some announcements along the way to remind people to circle back to that. And we'll have another interview, apparently. And probably one of my last questions might be, do you think there'll also be a tour at some point? Are you allowed to travel yet? I know you're in a different region than the US. You're in South Africa, right?
Yes, so I will be allowed to travel. And my idea for 2022, which I'm busy planning at the moment, is some intimate shows. So some smaller intimate shows around the US and around Canada. Because in 2019, I did Europe and the UK. So I'd love to just kind of come, and I've been to the States, I've lived in the States, but I've never been there over the summer. So I'm really excited to kind of plan it over that period and experience the States in a nice warm environment.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Do you have any cities specifically in mind that you might be performing at?
I definitely think I'm going to try my best to do the ones that I'd done before, which would obviously be LA. I would love to go to Texas again and perform there. I just find that there's an amazing reception there. I had a lot of fun performing in New Orleans, so I'd love to go there again.
That's
but there are a lot of Yeah, I love being there. I love the culture. I love the people. And I think there'd be a few I'd like to tap in. But if you have any suggestions, please let me know, because I'm sure that there's a whole community of people in some of the smaller states that are um, mad about music, and I would love to go visit those cities. So I'll
Yeah,
actually take your
yeah,
advice.
definitely. Well, without a doubt, New York City.
Cool.
Selfishly, I'm going to say Washington, D.C., but there's a lot of music this way as well. So yeah, there's a little bit. So we'll definitely chat, and maybe I can help you with that, with the planning of that. It'd be really cool to do something with you. It'd be fun.
Thank you so much. I'd love that. That'll be awesome.
This was really great, Eden. I really enjoyed our time together. I think the Culture Factor community has learned a lot about you today. I'm really
Oh,
happy.
well, thank you for having me, and thank you for your questions. I really enjoyed your questions. It was nice to dive into some different questions. And yeah, thank you for having me. I look forward to being on you again.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to tell our listeners to continue listening. Don't shut this off, because we are going to attach your latest track, Bay, which stands for Before Anything Else, which was your collaboration with Lee Cole.
Yes.
Excellent. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly.
That was a wrap. This was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Inseparable from the start, impossible to part. Keep me in your pocket, and I'll keep you in these arms. Look into my gaze, and I'll look the other way. 'Cause I just can't contain my smile, it's driving me insane. Take me away into a secret place, and you'll see the way that I can love you like you know me. I'm just not the type to taste, but with you, there's so much I can't explain. I'm not the type to taste. You come before anyone else.
Thought that I'd be smart and find a way to your heart. I kept you in this locket with a picture from the start. Played you like a game when I saw you look my way. Now that I got you next to me, it's driving me insane.
Take me away into a secret place, and you'll see the way that I can love you, babe. You know me, I'm just not the type to chase, but with you, there's so much I can't explain.
You come before anyone else.
You come before anyone else.
I'm often asked, does my business need a podcast? My answer is yes, that nothing else is the fast track into thought leadership and being established and seen as the expert in your industry as podcasting. What's increasingly evident is that it's a branding machine. It kicks doors open for you to have conversations with leaders. It creates a pathway to partnerships and connections on a deeper level. You will not be your industry's best kept secret. Your ideas and business will have global reach. Go to hollyshannon.com to launch your podcast now.